I'm Robert Cavuto, and today on Sonic Perspectives, we are speaking with Adrian Vandenberg about the release of his new album, Sin, due out August 25th. Welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure.
Yeah, we've spoken many a times, I guess,
Yeah.
Kings, and we spoke most recently in 2020 for the self-titled Vandenberg release. The world has really changed since then, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's survival of the fittest, basically, both physically and mentally. But yeah, the world has changed, and it's a human nature to prefer not to have any changes, But at the same time, if you look down in history and how it's always been, there's always been waves, and things change, and then something else happens because of that change, and new opportunities show up. But yeah, it's pretty drastic lately, actually.
Yeah. You told me during that interview that you had not left Holland to tour in 40 years. Have you been able to tour outside of Holland since we last spoke in 2020?
Well, actually, it was in 30 years. The last tour in the States was the beginning of 1990. So yeah, that's about 30 years, which is I barely realize that I'm already 30 years old. So I don't know, but yeah, things are changing. We're actually putting together an American tour beginning of next year.
Cool.
Which I'm really, really excited about because, yeah, as we just talked about, it's been quite a while, and we did play the Monsters of Rock cruise twice now, the last year and the year before that, which gave me the opportunity to get in touch with all these American fans, and it's so nice because most of these people have seen me play with Whitesnake, and then they kind of wonder where the hell did the Dutch guy go? Well, I'm here and I can't wait to tour.
Good. That'd be awesome. I'd love to see you. I've never seen you play, so it'd be great. I'd enjoy it.
It'd be great, yeah. I'm really looking forward to it, and to see the fans.
Cool. I really love the new album. I think you did a tremendous job on it. What was it about the song House on Fire that made you feel it hit the mark for a single?
Well, I thought that the first, as a first single, it would be great to do a barnstorm right crash through the door with a straight in your face rocker. Plus, also it shows what the band is all about as far as vocalist, bass player, and the drummer. A little guitar solo and all that stuff. So I thought it was a nice calling card, and then. Of course, the second single, Sin, it's 7 minutes long. It's like a cinematographic kind of single. It's like a whole story. It takes you with it and it sucks you up. And I thought it was another great calling card because it's something completely different than House on Fire. And it's also the next single is going to be something completely different again. It's going to be out next week. So. Yeah, these are weird times, to call a piece of music that you throw out as a calling card and call it a single, because as we know, releasing a single in the 80s or 90s was a different deal because it's a single, and right now you throw something on YouTube and on Spotify and you call it a single, But in the end, you put out a song. That's basically what it's all about, and you want to show the world what you worked your ass off on.
That's great. Did you do this during the pandemic? This album?
No. Well, actually, yes. The writing process, definitely. The recording was December last year, which was the tail end of the pandemic. In such a respect that we weren't obliged to stumble around in masks anymore.
Yeah. There's such a positive energy on this album. Is that how you felt when you were recording it?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I think, rock music should have that energy. Otherwise, it's no use of trying to play it. I must be honest. I heard so many rock bands put out records over the last 20 years, maybe 30, maybe even longer, that lack that fire and that energy that you want to hear on rock. You know, when you put on an AC/DC record or a Van Halen album or whatever, you wanna get that kick, and those guys always have it, and that's why I still play it in my car. You know,
Yeah.
so I would not want to put an album out that doesn't have that spark and that the fire and that dynamic. And you maybe you touched upon it. I think for me, every time I work on a record, and we work on a record as a band, and we want to try to capture that energy and put it out. You know, and hopefully it works because it's a lot of work. You know, to 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 work on an album. I'm a serious perfectionist, and I always put my heart and soul in it, and I wear myself out, you know. And the same
Yeah.
goes for Mats and the guys, you know. So that's why I'm really happy with this, the way it kind of worked with this album, because that's what I hear back from people who've heard it, you know, people that I talk to, like yourself. Apparently, the spark comes across.
Yeah. You know, you haven't said what the next song that released is going to be, but my favorite is Walking on Water.
That's one of my favorites too, and I'm really. It's not the next one, but I'm really uh, gonna push for getting that out as a single as well. And I also have a great idea for a video for that song. So yeah, I really hope it's gonna be a single as well.
Yeah, that was a great song. What's the history? What's the insight that you could share about that song? What made it, I guess, one of your favorites?
Well, I think for me personally, it is a link between everything I've ever done. I started out my first band that I put together and was allowed to record an album. I was 20 at the time, and I was, and I still am, a huge Bad Company fan and the band Free right before that. Um, and then you know, I've always hoovered back and forth, or basically slalomed back and forth between my blues rock side and my hard rock side, and Walking on Water hits both. It could have been, you know, it could have been an early Vandenberg song, it could have been a Bad Company song, it could have been a Whitesnake song, you know. So it seems to encompass everything I've always loved about the kind of rock that I play, and yeah, I'm very happy with it, and I'm happy with the solo I did on it because I realized later on that I was digging into my early influences like Clapton in his Cream period and Paul Kossoff in his Free period, and it turned out to be a very classic rock
Yeah.
solo when I listened back to it later.
You know, the thing that really attracted me to the song was the melody, the vocal.
Yeah,
That's big hook. That's a really, really big hook in that song.
yeah, thanks, man. I'm really happy with it. I also think so. You know, to me, I always come up with the choruses first. Well, usually for an album, and the first chorus line kind of got picked up by my mental antenna, so to speak. Yeah, like I said, I really hope to be able to put that song out as a single.
Yeah, I would agree. Tell me about what inspired you when you were playing guitar when you first started out, and what inspires you now, some 40 years later.
Yeah, it's still the same thing, you know. When it was definitely Jimi Hendrix, and early Clapton when he played with John Mayall, and especially when he played with Cream. There was such freedom and dynamic and fire and choice of notes that really inspired me. And the house, the family I grew up in, there was always music in the house. My dad played both classical and jazz piano. My sister is a classical concert piano player, still is. And I was way into Hendrix and Cream and Free and Bad Company and all that stuff. So all that stuff was always in the house. And I suppose I tried to translate the mix of all that stuff to my guitar, to squeeze that stuff out of my guitar. And the more I listened to those guys, I never had the patience of figuring out what they did, because after 1 or 2 minutes I thought, fuck it, I'll think of something myself. Because I just wasn't patient enough,
Yeah.
to figure out all those notes. And but they echo around in the back of your mind, and some you kind of want to make your own, put together your own language, so to speak, your own, yeah, your own language, but then in the musical sense of the word. So it's those guys still inspire me. I still play the stuff that I love, like Leslie West, in the 70s, Clapton and Hendrix, Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, of course, and Brian May, Michael Schenker, Randy Rhoads, all the guys that have a certain choice of notes that hits my heart, still inspire me up to this day.
Wow.
Eddie Van Halen, a lot of people go for the flash of Eddie Van Halen, but a lot of people seem to underestimate the sense of melody that he has, and blues feel that he has inside of the flash, and that's what makes him unique.
I agree. I agree. So were you the black sheep of your family, going with rock and roll and guitar?
In a way, yeah, but they find it amusing, that I went in such a different direction, and I was really lucky with my parents that when they started realizing there was no stopping me, because my dad was a scientist, a professor at university, and because I kind of sailed through high school without hardly doing anything, he was kind of hoping I would go into science as well, but by the time he figured out I was really adamant about music, he realized, okay, that's going to be it for him. And both my parents were very supportive, even though, especially my dad said, well, I want you to have a proper education, either in music or in art, in the sense of having security of finding work when you're done with it. So whether it was going to be classical guitar and conservatory, which I couldn't do because I can't read notes, I didn't want to do it, and or it was University of Arts. So I chose for the last one, because I thought if I'm going to end up teaching, I'd rather teach art than the music, because I don't, like I said, I don't have the patience to listen to guys play down, 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 because I can't even do that myself,
Still using the
So
same side of the brain, art and music.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I taught art at a high school for about a year, and made some money with that, where I could finance putting the band Vandenberg together, and recording demos and all that stuff.
That's pretty cool. You talked a little bit about Walk on Water, the solo, and the blues and the classic rock and the inspiration behind it. Is there anything that put on this album that you pushed yourself outside the comfort zone to
Oh yeah,
do?
the song Sin. I definitely, with that solo, that one is probably the most unusual solo from my style that I've done. And I just went for it, and I'm really happy it turned out the way it did, because it's definitely a different kind of solo than I've ever done.
Very cool. Very cool. Let's talk a little bit about the tone, your guitar tone, because it's full of presence. It's got tremendous bite to it and definition. What was your studio setup for it?
The same as the last album. The difference, it's interesting you notice that, because on this album I've been focusing more than ever before on the expression of what I do, the intensity, and I hit the strings pretty hard, but I hit them with my nails.
Oh,
Because ever since the accident that I had I had a car crash in the early 80s, which resulted in the wrist injury that I had during the recording of Slip of the Tongue, which is why I couldn't play on that album, and Steve Vai played on it, even though I wrote the songs, but they did. the coordination of my thumb and index finger has never been the same ever after that period. I only found out in 1999 that it was the result of a car crash I had in 1981, and that resulted in a whiplash which produced two neck hernias that press against the nerve of these two fingers, and,
Oh, wow.
and it influences the coordination of his hand. And I found out over the years that it felt better playing with my fingers and my nails. So especially with my nails, I can get more bite out of my attack, which I kind of went for on this album more, and I'm trying to follow that road, which is basically a natural road, for me. So, I mean, some of my heroes, like Jeff Beck and Freddie King, the classic blues player, they play with their fingers and with their nails, So I thought, well, why not do that if it feels better to me? And then I make the best out of that, which result in a different kind of bite that I seem to get out of my fingers. And the amplification is the same as on the 2020 album. I use a combination of Marshall, Wagner, and Mesa Boogie.
Mm-hmm.
But live, I will just go with what I always use, and it will sound pretty much the same, I suppose. We have all these options in the studio you want to explore, and that's what I do.
Yeah. I assume Les Paul. Did you use a Les Paul on this?
Yeah, I use my faithful Les Paul that I bought brand new in 1980, in combination with my PV Vandenberg signature model. I kind of bounce back and forth. They sound quite similar, but they feel different to me, so it makes me play a little differently.
Yeah. You know who plays without a guitar pick is Richie Cotton from the Winery.
Yeah, Richie's amazing.
Yes.
I saw him play, and we had a couple of chats on the Monster Rock cruise that we did. He's definitely one of my favorite guitar players of these days, together with Nuno Bettencourt, of course.
Oh yeah, of course.
They're both really amazing players, and they have the combination of soul and technique that I really enjoy with them, even though I'm a totally different player, but I always look for the soul and the feel in playing, and those guys have it, just like all the early guys that I mentioned.
Yeah. Now you have a new singer, Mat.
Yeah.
It's Matt's or Mat.
Matt's right. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you find him? He's great. He has a David Coverdale sound and vibe to his voice.
Yeah, he does. Of course, Coverdale has been an influence to him. I think most of the similarity. He's got the timbre also, that low resonant, that David has also. Yeah, I was lucky to run into Mat because after it appeared that Ronnie Romero's agenda and my agenda didn't match anymore after COVID, because COVID threw everything upside down for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were able as a band to start touring again, Ronnie was able earlier to take on gigs because he lives in Romania, and over there, people were able earlier than my part of the world to start touring. So yeah, like I said, our agendas unfortunately didn't match anymore. And then I found Mat, so I got lucky because, as we know, there's only a very few amount of singers who can handle this kind of repertoire.
Yes.
I only know of Dino Jelusic and Ronnie and Mat, and yeah, of course, people like Coverdale, but like of the generation that's still touring and stuff. So it appeared to be the case that when I called him Mat, he was very enthusiastic. He told me he was a little bit pissed off that when I started Vandenberg's Moon Kings, that I didn't approach him, but I just didn't think about him. I could have, but I was happy I did this time. And it appeared that when he was in his 20s, he had the first two Vandenberg albums, so he was totally familiar with the band and with my style of writing. So it matched perfectly.
Yeah, no, it's great. You've worked with so many singers over your career. When you're writing riffs and you're coming up with songs, whose voice do you hear in your head?
Uh, Usually the singer that I work with, but my all-time favorites have always been Paul Rogers, David Coverdale, Ronnie James Dio, Robert Plant, those style of singers that have blues in their voice. And that's what both Ronnie and Mats have, and Dino Jelusic, same thing. So yeah, when I write songs, I always try to aim for the singer that I'm working with at the time,
Okay.
which is not too difficult because they all have this same rootsy, bluesy kind of approach, you know?
Yeah, no, I get it. A couple of years back, I believe it was on social media. You and David were taking pictures, you were hanging out together. Looks like you may be working on something. Did anything ever transpire from that?
Well, actually, we were hanging out. Dutch national TV made a documentary about me and my doings.
Okay.
So with the team, we also flew to David because they wanted to interview David alone plus David and me together. So that's why we hung out then. We don't have that much chance to hang out as much as we would like because, of course, we live on different continents.
Right.
So occasionally it happens, and we always have a great time, you know.
That's good. You're still friends. That's nice.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for your time. I love the album. It was a fantastic interview, and thank you for sharing all the insights behind it. I really enjoyed hearing it.
My pleasure, man. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, and I really hope to see all our American friends on tour when we're touring next year. So
You will. You can guarantee it, man. I'll be there.
great.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
man.
Love it, Adrian. Have a great
Thank
day.
you very much.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye bye.